most of you probably know, June is Great Outdoors Month, which was kicked off earlier on June 3rd by National Trails Day. And today we are happy to be joined by Wesley Trimble, who is with the American Hiking Society, and he's going to share some of the history behind this celebration, as well as ways the public and other recreation professionals can engage with the celebrations of National Trails Day. Before I introduce Wesley, I have a couple reminders for everybody on the call with us. At the end of the presentation, we will have time for question and answer. So please hold all questions until then, or you can put them in the chat as we go, and we'll read them once we finish up. As I mentioned earlier, this webinar is being recorded and will be available to view on the Florida State Parks YouTube page by the end of the week, and I will send out a link to that once it's ready. All right, so as I mentioned, we're very excited to have Wesley joining us. Since 2015, he has managed American Hiking Society's National Trails Day program through the nationwide coordination and promotion of events across the country. He works to advance American Hiking Society's mission of empowering all to enjoy, share, and preserve the hiking experience, because it's his way of giving back to the places he loves to hike. And I'm sure many of us can relate with that same passion. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. So Wesley, if you want to share your screen, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thanks, Anna, for the introduction, and thanks everyone for hopping on the call today. Let me go ahead and share my screen, get that going, and pull up. There we go. Great. Thanks again, everyone, for taking interest in this webinar around National Trails Day. National Trails Day took place a couple of weeks ago, but in talking with Anna, we thought it would still be helpful to talk about National Trails Day. You know, we're kind of coming off of the peak season for it, but it's great to, share some of the stats for National Trails Day. In fact, you all are the first people literally to hear about some of the stats from this year, because in the last couple of weeks, I've been working on kind of collecting those and kind of analyzing them. So I'll preface that all of these numbers for this year still might be in flux until we do the verification on those numbers. But hope that it gives you an idea of what National Trails Day is about and how folks may want to participate in National Trails Day in the future. I've been, like Anna said, I've been coordinating National Trails Day for 8 years now, and it's been exciting to kind of see National Trails Day grow and change over that time frame, and excited to kind of share a little bit more about National Trails Day with all of you, and how really National Trails Day is a perfect opportunity to engage communities around trails and open space and public lands. So let's kind of go ahead and jump in. So when we talk about National Trails Day, let's kind of just talk about like kind of defining what it is. And, National Trails Day takes place on the first Saturday of June. It is a day of public events aimed at advocacy and trail service. Thousands of hikers, bikers, rowers, horseback riders, trail clubs, federal and local agencies, land trusts, businesses, and you name it, come together in partnership to advocate for, maintain, and clean up public lands and trails. I will note that folks can observe National Trails Day any time of the year, because we do understand there's really no great single day of the year for National Trails Day. Obviously, for folks in Florida, we have a number of events that take place on National Trails Day in Florida, and we have partnerships with like the Florida Trail Association that do a lot of events. And I know early June isn't ideal for getting folks out on trails in Florida, but at the same time, where I'm located here in Colorado, in the high country, there's still snow on the ground in early June. So both the high elevation and farther north events or locations and the southern regions maybe don't find it ideal to be out on trail on National Trails Day on the first Saturday of June. So we do give folks the opportunity to observe National Trails Day whenever is convenient for their programming. So maybe for folks in Florida, that might be looking at earlier in the year or later in the year. There is a large, hundreds of events each year take place on National Trails Day specifically. So if folks do decide to observe National Trails Day on a different day, I do recommend that folks kind of think about hosting events earlier, later in the season, so that if you register it on the National Trails Day website, which we'll get into in just a few minutes, but in doing so, if you register an event like maybe late fall, but still get it on the website before National Trails Day, it'll at least get in front of eyeballs of people that are looking for events, and maybe they might be more inclined to participate in an event later in the year. And I'll talk a little bit more about different ways that you can think about programming that may make sense on National Trails Day in promotion of potential projects or hikes or trail events later in the season. So moving on, when we talk about activities taking place on National Trails Day, pretty much any trail activity can be registered as an event, even though American Hiking Society does the primary national coordination of the event. Folks from the mountain biking community, trail running, equestrian, paddle organizations also host events. And so historically about 3/4 of events tend to either be recreation based or education based. And I'll talk a little bit more about the education aspect in terms of what might be really geared towards, or might be a great opportunity for folks in Florida to do something on National Trails Day without necessarily having an event out in the heat per se. And so the other quarter of events tend to be stewardship events or trail service, trail cleanups. And American Hiking Society has begun to put more emphasis in the last few years around both advocacy and trail service. Really trying to get more events to think about how to engage people in a way that they can see the importance of giving back to trails. And we also see an increase in hybrid events where some events might have multiple activities. So there might be a stewardship, trail cleanup, or trail maintenance project in conjunction with a bike ride or guided hike or paddle or something along those lines. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about some unique ways of doing events in the future. In terms of, when we talk about National Trails Day in terms of why it's a great reason to get involved, National Trails Day has been going on for 31 years. It started in 1993 in celebration of the 25th anniversary of the National Trail System Act. And with that act and with National Trails Day starting, it was really all about building more engagement and awareness around trails kind of across the country, and also focusing on those gaps in the national trail system. And though there are still gaps in the national trail system and the national scenic trails specifically, National Trails Day has kind of grown more broadly to really advocate for and promote trails of all kinds throughout the country. And in the last few years, really putting in more emphasis on like local trails and how people can find and get out in ways in their local communities, because obviously COVID has really shed light on the fact that the importance of getting out and having spaces and trails nearby. So really trying to emphasize that local engagement. So yeah, in terms of getting involved, I think there's a number of reasons why I would always encourage folks to get involved. And there's 3 main reasons. One is, reaching a new audience of people in the community that may not be familiar with the area or a specific park. And so it's a great way, with so many people talking about National Trails Day. It's a great way to kind of spread the message and get folks interested in local parks and trails. So for example, like for this year specifically, National Trails Day reached more than 27 million people on social media feeds alone, which equates to like almost $3 million in advertised value of that many people talking about trails, their favorite trail experiences, how they're helping to improve trails. And so with all of that kind of buzz around National Trails Day, it's a phenomenal way to invite people out, especially when more and more with social media kind of highlighting all of these different types of national holidays and events. It's a really great way for folks to think about how can I participate in some way in National Trails Day. Another important aspect of National Trails Day is the ability to recruit volunteer support. Many organizations I talk to continue to struggle with recruiting and maintaining relationships with volunteers, and the more and more organizations I talk to, it seems like a lot of that volunteer base is continuing to age. So National Trails Day is a wonderful opportunity to connect to younger audiences and get folks involved who may not be coming out to volunteer events throughout the year. So for this year, there was, this number is actually a little bit off. Since I wrote this, again, I'm still working to confirm all of the events, but I think the actual number is nearly double the number of trail volunteers. This year we'll call it at least more than 10,000 volunteers helped improve 548 miles of trail, which basically amounts to about $1.3 million in volunteer labor. And again, these numbers are still in the process of being kind of confirmed. But I still wanted to share some of these numbers with you all just to get a sense of how things went for National Trails Day this year. For National Trails Day this year, we're just shy of 800 events. Right now in the event system, we have 799 events in the system. Interestingly enough, we had events in every state except for Mississippi this year. And it's actually the last 2 years, every state but Mississippi has organized at least one event. So for any of you who may know a land manager or an individual or anyone in Mississippi, encourage them to host a National Trails Day event next year so we can get back to the 50 state goal. Another exciting news for National Trails Day this year, there was also, I think, at least 5 events taking place in Puerto Rico, which was great to see. There has been a history of events taking place in Puerto Rico as well. But after, I believe it was Hurricane Maria in 2019, obviously they had a lot of big infrastructure priorities beyond trails. And so there were no events in Puerto Rico for a number of years. So it was great to see them return strong with 5 events this year. And then in terms of overall participation at events across the country, more than 74,000 people went out to actual events. And that doesn't include, the hundreds of thousands of people that got out on National Trails Day just as a family or an individual or friends. So yeah, a lot of great stats out there in terms of the number of people getting involved in National Trails Day. The other, I guess, third reason to get involved with National Trails Day is American Hiking Society puts together a variety of time planning resources or time saving resources to help folks plan events. So we provide a toolkit. Well, we provide a guide for kind of step-by-step process of how to plan an event, as well as promotional resources that make it really easy to kind of share about the event and get it out to people in your local community. In addition to that, we provide checklists, photos, logos, all kinds of templates and a newsletter that kind of shares various tips and resources for planning and making sure your event is successful. The last 2 years, we've also worked to implement the promotional toolkit in Spanish as well, as another step in terms of reaching more diverse communities and individuals. Kind of a bonus for National Trails Days also, from year to year, we typically have products that we can distribute to events across the country. So for this year, we were able to send out nearly 200 kits, event kits that included some National Trails Day stickers with a QR code to the National Trails Day pledge. And I'll talk a little bit about the pledge in a minute. But basically, folks could take the pledge via the QR code or the website. They would be entered to win one of 4 gear packages that were each worth like $1,500 of some really awesome gear, like hiking boots, trekking poles, a cooler, and gear from a variety of our supporters and brand partners, as well as some of our national sponsors of National Trails Day. So for example, Athletic Brewing Company, which does non-alcoholic beer, also sent out 100 shipments with, I can't remember how many cases. I think it was like 20,000 cases of non-alcoholic beer and sparkling water to 100 different events. So yeah, maybe 20,000 is a little high. But yeah, sending out cases to 100 other events. So basically this year, about 250 events received support. Obviously, 250 is only a fraction of those 800 events. And we continue to try to find ways that we can support more and more events from year to year. So those resources typically come available in early March or April. So folks who sign up for a National Trails Day email, which can be done at the American Hiking website, you can receive communications early next year when we start talking about National Trails Day planning and how folks can request some of these products for next year. In terms of some other interesting things that we've done for National Trails Day the last couple of years, we've implemented a National Trails Day micro grant for the last 2 years, where we provide funding specifically for events that are planned and organized for communities within kind of underrepresented communities in the outdoors. So this year the last 2 years, we've done 3 events that received extra funding to basically help provide resources and provide funding for like transportation, a gear library, or whatever things folks need to help reduce barriers to the outdoors. And I would just like to say that one of the events this year that received that was a Florida-based event from Florida AMU University. They have their outdoor program was one of the events this year that received that funding, and they used that to take students to a number of state parks. I think actually in Georgia, though the community or the university, I believe, is in Tallahassee. And so, yeah, it was great to kind of see the expansion of kind of this new focus and ability to reach more communities with the micro grant. When it comes to hosting an event, it's anyone can host an event, and it is free. Registration typically opens sometime in Q1, sometime in February or March, typically. And that's when we start sending out emails to remind people to like register their event, and when we start talking about different materials that folks can request. If folks are interested in, thinking about National Trails Day next year, if you go to the American Hiking website or just nationaltrailsday.org, there's a place for clicking to host an event, and on there you can sign up for emails, and you'll start receiving emails. We try not to send too many emails out during Q3 and Q4. We know everyone is busy, so we really focus on the communications when things start to ramp up in the early part of the year. In terms of planning an event, when we kind of talk through like how to get started, again, I always mention that the best place to start on the website is on that host page, and you'll see the event host guide that again kind of walks folks through the process of thinking about all the details to organize an event. In terms of also talking more about the ways in which to engage communities, the event host guide does have a variety of ideas for event organizers to kind of think about and kind of process and use to plan their event. So when it comes to engaging more people on National Trails Day, I want to kind of jump in and talk a little bit more about some tips and to kind of help seed some ideas for thinking creatively beyond maybe standard programming. Because I know many organizations kind of host various programs throughout the year, and sometimes they will just organize or promote an existing event on National Trails Day, which is fine. But when folks are really looking at events, finding something that is unique and that kind of stands out is really helpful. So, one thing I always mention to event hosts is to really think about how to organize a noteworthy and valuable event, or that adds value to people in the community. So in terms of doing something unique to grab people's attention, and we'll talk a little bit more about the communication and promotion side of things in a few minutes. But I do want to provide a few examples to kind of think about ways to help kind of hook an audience and how to engage new people. Giveaways are great. Food is always a great way to bring people out. A lot of the best events that I see tend to have a community focus where there's maybe an activity, and then maybe there's a meetup or a barbecue or a happy hour afterwards for people to hang out and connect with one another. And it really is a great way to kind of build those connections. So also thinking about providing things for volunteers who come out for volunteer projects, if there's the ability to provide exclusive site access to certain areas of a park that may be limited to the general public at times, providing free entry or discounts on services. So I know some parks may offer like paddleboard rentals or kayak rentals or things along those lines, and doing those discounted for volunteers or participants. Doing skill-based workshops, talking to folks in the community to see what type of skills people may be interested in, whether that's maybe wildlife photography, and seeing if there's an expert in your community that would be willing to come out for that. Doing like map and compass, like first aid, there's kind of all kinds of different types of outdoor skills that is a great way to bring people out on National Trails Day. And some of those type of things, can be done maybe at a park visitor center on June 3rd, where, it might be too warm to be out on the trails, but still doing some of those type of presentations in a visitor center or something can be helpful. Doing demos is great, both like demonstrations, but also seeing if there's gear companies or outdoor retailers in the area that might be willing to do demos of products. So for some National Trails Day events, like sometimes they'll bring out like a bike shop that will allow folks to try out different bikes, or I know there's also other events that will bring out like a footwear, bring a sales rep for like a footwear company that folks can try out some new like trail runners or whatnot. Yeah, thinking about that, doing challenges, both recreation and stewardship challenges is also a great way to kind of build some excitement. So for example, I know one specific park in North Carolina, I think they have about 63 miles of trail in their specific park. And they try to like collectively like have their whole community hike all of those trails collectively and then try to reach, I think this year they set a goal of like collectively hiking 2,000 miles in their park on National Trails Day. And then in terms of like a stewardship way to do a challenge, I also know of an organization that does a paddle trip on a river. I think it's a couple mile stretch of river that they paddle, and the kayak or canoe that brings in the most trash at the end of the event receives a prize or whatnot. So there's some fun ways to think about challenging your community to do something collectively or individually. Doing scavenger hunts, themed events, pirates. There's a typo here. It should say superheroes. Like Bigfoot, like all kinds of different things that I've seen events do to have a theme and really engage people in new ways. Fundraising events for local friends groups, doing shuttle rides or hikes is great, or some combination of any of those type of events is great. Next, I want to talk a little bit about building partnerships. I think partnerships is one of the best ways to have a really successful event for a number of reasons. It provides folks the ability to share the planning for their event. It provides additional volunteer support, and cross promotion is probably one of the biggest things. Like thinking about what entities or businesses or other organizations in your area might have an interest in coming together to do an event provides incredible ability to cross promote and reach people that may not be in your existing network. And yeah, being able to recruit partners that might have expertise in doing promotion or can provide financial support or other resources or giveaways, all of those type of things are great when it comes to thinking about how to best organize an event. In terms of, I just want to share a quick list of organizations to think about in terms of doing a partnership. Obviously, land managers or landowners, outdoor and conservation groups, outdoor affinity groups, such as Latino Outdoors, Outdoor Afro, Hike It Baby. There's all kinds of incredible outdoor affinity groups out there that you can invite out to an event. Local breweries, outdoor retailers, climbing and fitness gyms, running clubs, chamber of commerce, meetup groups. If you haven't looked at all of the meetup groups in your area, there's probably a birding meetup group. There's probably a hiking, paddling group. There's all kinds of different groups that if you reach out to see if they'd be interested in coming together for a specific event, as well as wellness and health organizations, tourism offices, tangential businesses. I like to think of some examples where land managers have partnered with businesses in the community that they bring out their staff on National Trails Day or maybe the day before National Trails Day if they want to do something during their actual their work hours to come out and participate in an event. And so at an event that I went to 2 seasons ago, there was a land manager that built a partnership with a pretty large landscape architecture firm in the area so that their whole staff would come out to participate on National Trails Day each year as a way to give back. So National Trails Day you can kind of think about it as a great way of doing team building and volunteering for specific organizations. Park and rec departments, youth and senior groups as well. And again, this is a picture from that event that I went to a couple years ago, where the land manager built connections with some local businesses to provide food for all of the volunteers after the service project. But then, yeah, seeing all kinds of different partnerships with businesses to bring people out, and then also businesses that really helped bring resources out to the event as well. When it comes to talking about raising awareness for events, kind of the communications and PR is pretty important. And so I want to provide a few tips for that before we get close to the time for some Q&A. In terms of outreach tactics, I think using National Trails Day as a hook for local press and media is really helpful. Being able to tie a local event into a national celebration provides a little bit of newsworthy information that maybe a local reporter would be interested in doing a write-up before or after your event. Pitching stories is really helpful. Thinking about like the news, magazines, local blogs or newsletters. I know a lot of communities have like a community event calendar or event email that you can potentially try to get National Trails Day included in. Connecting to current events or topics is really helpful. Obviously, last year in the news, there was a lot of talk about the increase in moisture in California and flooding. And so a number of event organizations kind of hooked their event into that by talking about how their event is going to help clear up down trees and whatnot on National Trails in response to all of this rain that California has been receiving over the last winter. So thinking about what ways you can connect your event into what is taking place in the news is a great way to kind of hook your event and make it relevant and very time worthy into kind of the current media landscape. Creating Facebook events is really helpful for those who have Facebook pages because folks who might be searching for events in the area, even if they're not familiar with your organization or your park, when they're looking for events, if they have done similar outdoor activities in the past, it's more likely that the Facebook algorithm will put your event in front of them, even if they aren't currently following you on Facebook or whatnot. And then also thinking about what people in your community might be outdoor influencers, and thinking about talking to staff to see who they may recommend to reach out to. Beyond just influencers, thinking about people in the community and leaders in the community and seeing if they would either be willing to come out to an event, or at least help promote the event is a great way, again, to kind of reach more new audiences for National Trails Day. So those, are kind of the overview of National Trails Day and some great tips on thinking about how to organize an event for 2024. I know it's 12 months away at this point, but it's never too early to start thinking about National Trails Day next year. So that's everything I have. I'll hand it back over to Anna, but if anyone has questions about anything I presented on or National Trails Day or American Hiking Society, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you so much. And if you just want to leave the screen up with your contact information, I think that's perfect. So we are going to move into the Q&A portion. There was so much great information that you shared. some people's questions might have already been answered, but feel free to go ahead and type into the chat if you're joining us live and you'd like to ask Wesley anything. And we do have a couple here to get started with. So it's actually come up in past webinars as well, and you mentioned this in your webinar, how it can be difficult to engage with the younger generation of hikers and volunteers, especially when a lot of organizations might already be working with a lot of retirees or people who have been volunteering there for a long time. And this might not be related directly to National Trails Day, but what has American Hiking Society been doing to kind of target that next generation of hikers? I think you guys have a program specifically geared toward that. Or what tactics have you found successful for engaging with the younger audience?
Yeah, great question. There's been a number of things that we've done, thinking about, our like member and donor demographics tend to be older, but also, the need to kind of remain sustainable and bringing new perspectives and new individuals into the organization, and being strategic about how you do your communications and outreach. So we've been, in the last probably 5 or 6 years, have putting more emphasis in Instagram specifically, because it tends to, it was and it still is to a certain degree, a little bit younger of a demographic. So seeing where people are at either geographically or kind of in the digital sphere, and think about doing some promotion or advertising that way. So that could look like, obviously from a digital perspective, thinking about Instagram and TikTok. American Hiking doesn't have a TikTok. I know some organizations have been doing more of jumping into TikTok from a strategic way to reach kind of younger audiences. But yeah, making sure that the messaging and the visuals that you're using are appealing to those younger demographics. And then kind of from a physical, like a geographic perspective of like, what type of events are younger generations engaging in your local community or at specific businesses? Maybe there's breweries or other types of businesses, bike shops or different things that might be, really places where there is more engagement for younger generations. And then, putting like either one, seeing if those businesses would be willing to partner around National Trails Day in some way, or be able to put up like flyers or put out like promotional rack cards or something, is a great way to think about being strategic in how you reach out to other individuals.
Great, that's a great answer, and a lot of that is applicable, I'm sure, to a lot of what people are trying to do in their strategies. We had a comment, just someone expressing concern that trail use might impact habitat, wildlife habitat. If maybe you want to talk a little bit about what the American Hiking Society does to encourage low impact trail use, or any tips you might have for low impact trail use.
Yeah, great question. A number of things. So one of the key things that we've really amped up over the last couple of years is the National Trails Day Pledge, which is the language has kind of changed from year to year. The last 2 years, the language has been around leaving the trails and the outdoor community better than you found them. And we provide kind of a whole list of ways in which people can get involved, either from a stewardship perspective or an advocacy perspective. And so I'll mention a couple of things with that. Like one, part of that is information about how to recreate responsibly and kind of like leave no trace principles. So there is a really important education component, because in the last 2 years, the Outdoor Foundation puts together a outdoor participation report. And I think from 2019 to 2021, there was an 18% increase in just the number of day hikers getting out. That's not even including mountain bikers or trail runners, which I think also saw pretty high increases. So with more people being out there, there is obviously a really important aspect of making sure people are educated. And getting people out is also a great way to make sure that they understand the importance and have a connection to local ecosystems and whatnot. to value conservation or wildlife conservation, land conservation, kind of all of the above. And so I think you can also think about National Trails Day as a great way to do some of that public outreach and education to encourage people to recreate responsibly, staying on the trail and being aware of different hazards along certain areas of trail, or making sure that people are being respectful of wildlife. So yeah, I think thinking about that is a great way to also encourage people to continue to learn more about their local environment.
Great, thank you so much. That's a really great answer. A lot of people don't really think about that impact that it can have when we have increased outdoor recreation. And I think that's really great to think about the education that you can incorporate while people are getting out and how they can actually become trained, become better stewards of the land. Our next question here, does American Hiking Society have local chapters, or is everything run at the national scale?
Great question. Yeah, so we don't have local chapters. We do kind of the national communication plan for National Trails Day and the kind of national outreach with advertising and a variety of things that we do kind of at the national level, but we really do depend upon local event organizers. And like I said, organizers tend to be either organizations, trail or recreation organizations or land managers, but we also have just individuals who will register an event to do something in their area as well. But yeah, so yeah, we don't have local chapters, but we do greatly rely on local entities to do events to get folks out on the trail.
Great, thank you. That's all the questions I'm seeing for now, but since you do have your contact information up there, would it be okay if viewers who are maybe watching the recording reach out to you with any further questions they might have about National Trails Day or how to get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. And the best way to learn more, and I should have also included it here. I mean, on our website, americanhiking.org, there is a section or a tab for National Trails Day, but you can also just go to nationaltrailsday.org. And all of the information, and especially if you click on like host an event, that'll take you to an information page that provides a lot of resources for planning an event.
Perfect, great. Well, thank you so much for all that great questions that we've answered and for your awesome visuals and presentation today. We are going to go ahead and wrap up, and I will be sending out a survey about the webinar today. So anyone who's joining us live or watching the recording at a later date, feel free to go ahead and fill that out and let us know if you want to see future topics covered in future webinars. And we do have signups through September available on our website, the Office of Greenways and Trails website, where you can sign up for future webinars. Like I said, this is recorded and will be sent out by the end of the week and watchable anytime on the Florida State Parks YouTube channel. And with that, we're going to go ahead and log off for today. Thank you again, Wesley, and we'll go ahead and see everyone next month.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate everyone jumping on. Talk to you next time.